Ladies and gentlemen, it is with the most profound of appreciation that I take this opportunity to welcome you all to our talk today from artist Joe Diggs, Proud to be American, The Art and Life of Joe Diggs. Joe Diggs is an amazing artist here. Just a quick disclaimer, views expressed by the speakers and workshop facilitators do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the organizing groups. All programming uses the Zoom meeting or Zoom webinar format. The webinar format is to prevent unexpected interruptions. It's not that we don't want to hear you. In fact, we do want to hear you. Questions for speakers can be submitted using the question and answer chat function. We also would like to thank the Black Project. That's the Black Literacy and Arts Collaborative. They are a nonprofit that creates resources for literacy and arts for communities of color who are traditionally underserved. They have mentorship programs, a program about storytelling to build a medical trust. They have this amazing Spread the Love program where they encourage people to just give notes of love and community to complete strangers. They have book giveaways. You can learn more about them on theblackproject.org. Similarly, this programming was created with the People's Heart. They're a healthcare institution community art placemaking collaboration. Their mission is to change institutional healthcare culture and empower underserved patients and communities of color through art and design. Programming includes art on walls, workshops, lectures like this one, pop-up health events. You can learn more about them at thepeoplesheart.org. Now it is again, with the most sincere appreciation that I welcome Joe Diggs.
Well, guess I'm just gonna go ahead and let you guys know about what I do. My name is Joe Diggs, and I'd like to welcome you to my studio. I live here in Austinville, Massachusetts. It's a very small town, very small village here on Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and it's a wonderful place that I grew up. I am the third child of George and Deborah Diggs, and how I kind of got introduced into the world of art was through my older brother Craig, and what's happened in time is I'm going to give you a chance to see everything that I've done, how I work in my studio, and I'll show you some points of the interest that I work with, and we'll go from there. As I said, I'm the third child of George and Deborah. So being a middle child, I've always been kind of wanting to find, get my own voice. And this is art has always been a voice that I've followed. Micah's Pond is a little pond that's on in Austinville. I'm going to swing the camera around here. You might be able to see a little shot of the pond through the trees. There it is. All right. So this is a notorious place here. My grandfather, Joe Gomes, who I was named after, his father, Gideon Gomes, amassed a lot of property as Cape Verdean cranberry picker. And through that, he just became an entrepreneur and bought more property. And this was one of the places where minorities had their opportunity to come and hang out in the summertime. And he also had some year-round houses. So this was part of it. So the Proud to be an American series started really back when my grandfather, Joe Gomes, passed away. He was a World War I veteran, and as a World War I vet, they always take, well, all armed service families, they take a yearly photograph, and I had the yearly photograph of my grandfather, and then realizing that so many of my relatives, males, were also, service individuals. So my father as well, my uncle Mitchell was a Tuskegee Airman, and the idea of being proud, looking at all their photographs in all their uniforms, and knowing what they were fighting for, just was really a great feeling. So I at that time, it was 2008 actually, when I started doing this series of Proud to be an American. So I want to show you how that started. I'm going to slide over here, give you a picture here. Take this one off and let you see these. So I'm gonna slide this up a little bit so you guys get a little better closer look at this. And stand back here and talk about it a little bit. So, well, this piece here, this is my my Uncle Mitchell. He was a Tuskegee Airman. So my first piece is back in 2008. Did a couple of collages with him specifically. He was by being a pilot, he just wanted to come home after the war and become a commercial airline pilot, and wasn't given the opportunity. And with that, I started thinking about that, and I composed a few pieces so that it would actually talk about his journey. And with that, now they're in the Design Union Museum in Hyannis in their permanent connected collection. So we don't have a lot of them. But this was my father, George Diggs. This is a race relations piece. He was a race relations Army officer before he retired. So in his yearly photograph, this was his last annual photograph. He was angry. It was obvious. So I just wanted to kind of capture his moment, just anger at the system. So I did this painting, and it turned one thing into the next, and it made me ask the question, if you're proud to be an American, why are you proud to be American? And it became a complex question that was a great thing to paint from. Our history is so rich, and though it doesn't get out into the mainstream, the richness of this history, once I started unfolding it, made me realize how very proud I am of being me, and how very proud I am of being an American. Though, we've got room to improve, an awful lot of room for improvement. But to go a little further, this is my Uncle Frankie, another serviceman, and he was also a businessman in West Medford, Massachusetts. And the reason why I made this piece, well, I found this stencil that said "Proud to be an American," and "God bless America," and it had the American flag. And with that stencil, I started questioning that on top of everything else that I was already questioning. And then I was doing these little assemblages, little collages, and I put this together with Uncle Frankie in mind. Just a great businessman, another guy who kind of lived that dream of what America could be, having his own businesses, being able to play golf in the wintertime down south, come up north and play a little bit in the summer and get his work done. So so I wanted to memorialize him. So as we're speaking here, I'm going to put up a couple other paintings here. This so in 2011, I started using some X-rays. I started using X-rays because I found X-rays made me think about looking a little deeper into situations instead of just being on the surface of a piece. Like kind of look at the imagery and then try to connect imagery with the purpose in which you're trying to do it with. So I came up with this little idea of using X-rays. And let me see, I can probably slide this one a little closer so you can see it. There's going to be some glare factors, so I apologize. So I'll tilt it a little bit. This one's called Goodwood. And so this was all about this baseball player, Mr. Jones, who was in the Negro baseball league down south. His photograph was in my father's yearbook, and when I saw it, I was like, "Oh, this has to be a piece of work here." The imagery was way too strong to let it go. And so when I stayed in the theme of baseball and the idea that when I lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I was a flight attendant for 15 years. And when I was living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I had a haircut up on the hill. And I said to the bartender, a barber, I said, "Wow, this place was a beautiful place at one time. You could tell by the buildings." And he said, when the Negro Leagues were at their best, when they were really going at it, that's when this town was incredible. And I thought about how that money is no longer part of their economy. And so, so when I started doing these pieces on baseball, I was realizing that the Negro League had such a major part of our economy that was taken out with, and so there was the fences, I chalk lined the baseball player, but then I put the X-ray over top of everything just for like further examination to look a little deeper into things. So I would continue this theme. Sometimes I flip the X-ray upside down, and the cancer. This is the cancer of baseball, and I put the gentleman in the background just to continue this whole theme of baseball player and character. Wow. Just another one in the same series. The white paper in the background is a legal piece of paper. So the reason why the legal piece of paper, of course, this is all legal. There was all legally things done. The idea that we're actually moving forward somehow in the grand scheme, because now Negroes were playing in the big leagues, but in truth, it was just actually taking the money away and redistributing it to a different person.
Joe, quick question. Where did you get these X-rays from? And apologies for the audio issues before. It's all fixed now.
Oh, fabulous. It kind of shocked me when I heard somebody speaking. I got these X-rays from a fellow, well, he's a doctor, and he found a way to give them to me. So and then every time I ran into other friends who I knew who were doctors, I'm like, do you happen to have any X-rays? And they would say, why do you need X-rays? And I tell them about my artwork, and they'd say, well, hold on, let me see if I have anything scrounged around. And they would eliminate the information off of the end of them, and then give me the X-rays. Let me show you the first one here. It's actually it was with a teeth X-rays. And this was in 2011. Can you see this? I don't even know if you can.
Yes, we can.
Fabulous. I'll tilt it just a little bit. So these characters all in here are all teeth X-rays. This piece is called Rooster's Teeth and Tile. So it was the idea, just the protection, the hard enamel of teeth, the protection of the rooster to its hens, and kind of the idea of building a community. It's got one pour polymer over top of it, which is the bar topping, and that seals the whole piece. So that's one of the first pieces. It's one of the first pieces that I've ever done with the X-rays, and that's kind of how.
Now, roosters have been in many cultures a symbol of strength. Where did you find the rooster symbolism from? What brought that on?
You nailed it. It's just I just always knew it to be a symbol of strength. I mean, in all cultures really, but more the fact that Cape Verdean culture, we've seen roosters they're a regular thing. So yeah, that's been part of it. Just knowing your heritage. It's really where it came from. Great. So when this was all the Proud to Be an American stuff started happening, and I had a chance to show this at Brattleboro Museum, and as well as at Cape Cod's culture at the Kituit Center for the Arts, and these pieces became where I got a chance to actually show these. And so as you can see that ball player now, and that's the part that's really kind of fun for me to show you guys, to have you in my studio to see how the idea goes from the source material and from a collage into a painting, and from there a whole series. So this is the baller, chalk line baller. The idea behind the chalk line baller is basically that there aren't any black males, or there are very little black males left in Major League Baseball now. It is good that the Latino league is taken, has a lot of people of color in the league for that reason, but there's not a lot of African Americans, not a lot of black males from the United States that are playing in National Baseball League anymore. So he's chalk lined to show the depth. And then there's a sign of youth in the background with this guy, the young kid who's got the strength going and thinking that there's a positive time in the future. So I draw all these lines. These are all the people who have passed, chalk line baseball players that passed underneath, and kind of just build a big history on the whole thing.
Great. And I want to apologize because I gave a introduction to you, but it seems that it didn't go through because my microphone was having issues. But one thing that I had mentioned was you received your BFA in 1984, but then went on to receive your MFA in 2015.
Right.
And I was wondering, well, among other things, what caused you to want to go back? And then how did that affect your ability to create? Because it seems like a lot of your style has, while evolved over time, remained very similar.
Thank you for noticing that. So I've always had a desire to go back and get my master's degree right from college. But you know, that whole desire to be an artist is one of those things that, you know, you kind of say, okay, it's a pipe dream. If I was fortunate enough to have this happen, if I'm fortunate enough to have that happen, and it didn't really kind of work out the way that I expected it to. I graduated, got my degree, and then in 1985, I took a job with U.S. Airways, and it was a flight attendant for 15 years. The idea behind that was like travel all over the world, see the museums. You know, you have to get the education to be able to paint in the way that I want to. So that was the idea behind it. And at the same time, I continued to work on my skill set and work on my art. I applied for it was called a Budweiser grant. There was 5 of the top art schools that was available in this grant, and that was probably in like 87, 88 or so. And I got accepted to Cal Arts. So I went out there and checked out the school, talked to Mark Bradford, which was incredible. Had to meet him and talked about art for a day, and looked around and said, this is just not for me. You know, I told him, I said, you know, I'm an East Coast guy. I'm not into conceptual work as much as I really want to put paint on a canvas. And so then I came back and I started trying to get work into places in New York. I had a show in New York City at the Mercer Street Gallery. And like, I think that was in 87 or 88. And then I decided, okay, never mind. I don't need graduate school for a while, and came back home and was really trying to get the work out there, and realized that, no, I really want this education. And so I applied back to Mass Art and got accepted into the Mass Art program, the low residency program in Provincetown, Massachusetts, at the Fine Art Work Center. And it was just an incredible experience there. And here I am. So a little older, a little late bloomer, you know, but it's just who I am.
Was that predominantly creating art, or was there more study involved in that?
It was more. It's a studio program, so you're making art through the whole thing. There is, you know, of course we wrote, had to write a thesis, had to, you know, support and argue that thesis, that kind of stuff. But it was really, it's a studio program first and foremost.
And then for this piece and your other pieces in this baseball series, of course, 4th generation Osterville, Massachusetts, Boston Red Sox, right? Has this love of baseball been something that has been throughout your family, or was it mostly you who focused and found this?
No, I come from a line of athletes. You know, my older brother Craig was captain of everything in high school. My younger brother Kip was a professional boxer who made it quite high into the ranks of his sport. I played college basketball, so we were always athletic, and I still consider myself an athlete still now, though you know, I'm an older athlete. But now I play golf and that kind of stuff. So, you know, yeah, athleticism and the arts, I found a way to kind of bring the two of those together, and they've meant a lot. It's been part of my growth process, is being able to use the things that I've learned in sports with the things that I've learned in the arts.
Great. And then jumping back to your mention of being a flight attendant. Now, you were actually born in France.
Yes.
And so your story in and of itself is one of constant migration. Yes. How do you feel that works its way into your art?
Well, well, first of all, travel is the biggest education, I believe, and at least it has been the biggest education of my life. You know, I also deal with a couple of learning disabilities. So being an ADHD, a little dyslexia, I've got some little other things that that happen. So with that in mind, it's always been something that I could hold on to. Imagery is important to me. Music has been a huge influence in my life. And the travel aspect kind of made it so that I can understand where I am at certain times. And that's actually how it's reflected back into the work that I'm doing now. You know, a long time ago, I never had a well, when we had a sense of self, I moved here when I got to Cape Cod when I was 10 years old. This has always been base for us. So we traveled around when I was younger, but then, you know, my sister had like her whole high school through at Barnstable High School. And that was the idea. So we settled down in enough time so my sister could actually spend some time at one school. And so this has been home for me. But the fact that I had traveled around so much gave me a better idea of who I was living in this little village. And it's a good thing because, you know, Osterville doesn't have, it's like the whitest of white village in the world. You know, I mean, I love being from here, but at the same time, if you didn't have an awareness of who you are, you know, this place could definitely eat you up. And it's just there's major issues for people of color when you put it all together. You know, here we are in this very elite little village and we're just one little tiny pocket. So I like to show the pride that I have from the continuation of owning these properties. And it only comes from the fact that I've traveled all over the world and I realize how precious and special this piece is.
That's amazing. And, you know, I don't want to steal your thunder of what you might show us next, but, you know, your family's legacy is really this interesting juxtaposition in this very white town, much like, you know, the radiographs or the x-rays are a juxtaposition in your art. If you'd like to share some of that story, that would be amazing.
Yeah, let's get to that. So really the bottom line is my grandfather, Joe Gomes, who is the character I talked about earlier. And actually that's one of the pieces that I did of him when I was in undergrad in the upper left-hand corner there, right-hand corner for you guys. The property that I live on now has multiple cottages and multiple houses, and I've done a lot of work or paintings of them. But a lot of, in 2018, I got a chance to go to the Vermont Studio Center, and we worked on, I worked on a group of work specifically after his bar called Joe's Twin Villa. And let's see if I can get a Joe's piece here. I'm gonna move the big painting out of the way here. I'm gonna slide one of Joe's paintings in here. So I realize how absolutely fortunate I've been to be named after this fantastic man, but more importantly, to run all of his businesses. And we were probably at the same age doing the same thing, which was kind of like the highlight of my life that I could actually follow his footsteps a little bit. So this is Joe's Twin Villa. It was a little cold storage bar that my grandfather turned into a bar at the turn when booze became legal. And it was basically a spot where Cape Verdeans hung out, or locals came out, working people came out. My grandfather was known to bootleg liquor, you know, and I guess the deal is they used to come back to the bar. Well, it was before it was, when it was still a coal barn, and divvy up the booze, send it to one neighborhood, that would go to the other neighborhood. My grandfather would go to do his thing with it. And then as soon as he had a chance to make it legal, he made the bar legal, made a big legal business out of it. And I got a chance to run this bar for 8 years. It was the highlight of my life. So at the same time, it was the time that it was a highlight of my life. It gave me the, when the business ultimately failed, it gave me that void, the space where I needed to find a way to handle it personally. And so once again, the artwork comes and saves me and gives me the opportunity to put it out. So in 2018, I made a whole series of Joe's Twin Villa paintings. This is just one.
And so so you don't own that land anymore, is that correct?
No, we still own the land. We still own the land. The business is no longer operating. There's a little house in front of it that we're renovating at this point, going through some renovations. My brother's going to live in that property. And so we're trying to hold on to the family properties as much as we can.
Mm-hmm. And this is kind of in the background of a changing Osterville experience, correct? The Airbnbs and just the whole design of the city is changing.
The village here doesn't really change that much, and that's that is the odd thing about it. Well, because it's old money, and they prefer to try to keep things as simple as it always has been. However, you know, the little houses are now being replaced by McMansions. There's McMansions everywhere. You know, it's just the amount of money is just outrageous. So it's changed in those ways. It hasn't changed in any for minority structure at all, except for trying to get rid of them. You know, honestly, it's always been controlled. They try to control the you know, the people of color and keep them kind of in a simple spot. I mean, it's just the way that the system works.
And your grandfather was part of.
We're truly just trying to hold on to our own property because the squeeze is what happens. You know, between taxes and you know, everything around us is all municipally owned, and then they come up with different reasons why they need to approach your property. So it's very it's always been a very pressure-filled situation being property owner here. However, at the same time, looking at it and appreciating it is understanding how beautiful it is and realizing that it's just an absolute treat to live here. Absolutely.
And your this land is also historically significant, if I'm correct, because it allowed for Black and people of color to summer there in the past. Is that correct?
Very, very much so. Yes. Yeah. In the past, and still, actually, we still have the same. We have like 3 families that still come here every summer. You know, one way or another. Just even if they come in for a week or a weekend just to say hello. So we still have them. We have those connections. It's beautiful.
And do you still offer opportunities for other people to come and summer in the cottages, or is it mostly just family, friends, and connections?
It's mostly friends, family, and connections. At this point, there's only 2 places that they get rented, and they on a summer schedule, and they get booked right away. So I really don't have any need to, you know, advertise or get those things out because it pretty much maintains itself at this point. Which is really nice. So that gives those other families who've been here for all those years a chance to come back and still be a part of it. One of them's getting married here in at the end of the summer. It's a true feeling of community you know, and they're my summer family. I don't even know. I've never been to their houses. They've been here, but I've never been to theirs. That's how it works.
Yeah, that makes sense. And for those unaware, of course, part of the noteworthy nature of this land is that it was featured in the historical Green Book, which was for Black families a way to figure out how to travel safely without facing discrimination.
True. We're looking to make sure that, you know, that's correct in the record, that it was on the Green Book. There has been other travel guides that I know that it's been in, but to say their actual Green Book, we haven't been able to find it in the Green Book itself. But it's been in travel guides, Black travel guides. And that's along with the roost, the wigwam, and other things that were in the Green Book. So there's the time when the Green Book was actually happening, my grandfather had used these places more for year-round ownership, you know, for Blacks to live in than weekly people. Then when the bar kind of kicked in, what he found a way as a businessman that he was to go and get minorities from the base on Thursday nights, which was maids' night out. So he would get the maids from working in the big mansions here, and to go and pick up the guys from Otis Air Force Base, bring them back in, and then he would rent them the cottages. And then that started the business of the cottages, and it became a spot where all, you know, people of color could come in on the summer times. So that's the story of how the cottages rolled.
Great. And with all that legacy, does that is there conflict with that legacy in your works, or is it, you know, entirely celebration? How do you kind of see yourself in pushing that legacy forward through your art?
There's definitely conflict in it, but on the other side of it, it made me realize, and this is just, I've been kind of coming to this, you know, in my life now, that, you know, in a weird way, that I'm royalty, that I'm very specially, because I've been gifted these opportunities. And, you know, as you know, the situation is, you know, those who are gifted, you know, you owe your penance, you have to go ahead and work it out. So for me, I'm excited to be able to show this, to remind people how the Black experience is not just, it's not a monolith, that it's massive, it's beautiful. And it has history. It's got deep roots, and this is the source. That's why we've been holding on to the building down at Joe's, even though it's in bad shape, but with just a hope and dream that somehow we can preserve something, some part of it, hold it together. It would be a great place for movie set or something or anything, just because it's just such a meaningful, important institution of who we are.
And Black history, right? Because you stand in Black history.
That's what I'm saying, exactly who we are. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Which is incredible when you know, we look at your work, and I don't mean to take you away from showing all these pieces, but one thing that I find just amazing in all of them is, regardless of the scenery of what you paint, it just oozes Black history. There's something about all of your work throughout that just is shedding the Black experience with everything, that every stroke of the brush.
Thank you for seeing it, looking at it. You know, I've got an idea, I've got a plan, I've got a desire, I've got a will, you know, I mean, and I want to be in the same special place that my grandfather, who I was named after, like he was a very special man who did incredible things. I'm wearing my African American Museum paint shirt because I was there in the inauguration day. I'm looking forward to hanging one day, you know, between the masters that I appreciate. You know, I mean, there's a reason to do this. It's important to get this information out. The history is important. You know, Black art matters. It's just important to get this out. And I think that, you know, if you don't put it out in the universe, it doesn't come back to you. So I'm willing to put it out there. I'm willing to do the work. And, you know, I teach kids who are incarcerated youth. I teach them on a weekly basis. And, you know, and you have to have light, you know, you have to have light. I keep reminding them that there are different ways of doing things. You don't have to always go about the same thing. And art gives you the opportunity to see things in a different way, in a different approach. And so I'm just trying to be a bit of a light to some people who might be in the dark.
Great. And we have a question here. Have you visited the National Negro League Museum in Kansas City?
I have not. I have not. It is on the top of my list. I collect a whole bunch of Negro League stuff. So I'm looking forward to going down there and sitting and having some of those Kansas City ribs real soon, hopefully. Hopefully now that the masks and stuff are starting to slow down, hopefully we'll get through this.
And then one last question before we get back to the art, but still, of course, related to the art. Now, you're the vice president, or have been the vice president, of the NAACP annual fashion show in P-Town.
Well, actually, it's here in Hyannis, but yes.
Oh, okay. So how did that come into play? I never thought you a fashionista.
Oh yeah, well, you know, there was a time when I had money and it was fun to be able to wear clothes. Now, you know, when I really dove into being an artist, that was the end of the wardrobe. Yeah, no, I grew up. My grandmother was a seamstress. My mother very much into, she'd make anything. So I was very keen on fashion and still have a desire to have a fashion line of clothes. What happened there was the DeLuzes, the great family, Cape Verdean family here in the Barnstable area, asked me to be a part of it. And when I became, you know, as an NAACP member anyways, I came and had the opportunity to be part of the fashion committee. You know, with my grandmother, I used to always go to the fashion shows in Boston on a regular basis. And so for me, it was seamless. Dan, honestly, I was like, yeah, let's get this. And it was nice to meet everybody. We set up everything, make sure everything runs smoothly. So it was a great experience to be able to hang out with them. That's how I ended up being a part of that.
So these NAACP fashion shows, were they mostly showcasing more traditional Western garb like suits, dresses, etc., or was it more fringe, experimental works?
Well, so the ones that we had here was actually the Sepia show, which was it was an actual show that was from Johnson. I think it was the Johnson family from the Jet and Ebony magazine. I think it was their lower level of show, and I could be wrong here, so I apologize if I'm misspeaking here. But it was the Sepia show, so there was a smaller level of just the regular, you know, all your designers at the time. you know, whoever it was, they were runway models, and they came with everything, with a, you know, a monitor, a person who actually spoke the whole thing through, and had the models come down and do their thing. So that was that one. But my grandmother used, when she was a seamstress for Filene's Basement, for Filene's, the store. We used to get the big show, you know, the actual fashion show through up in Boston. So that was the big show was there. So that's where I became familiar with how the runway worked, how these things should look. So when I came down, when we pared it down and went to the small show here in Hyannis, I was that's why they asked me to come and be a part of things, because I kind of knew how the lay of the land a little bit.
Great, so multi-talented.
You have to be, especially as, you know, as an African American. I think that, you know, in our country, you have to be. You have to, you know, we speak multi languages. We're bilingual automatically because we have to be. You have to. I mean, it's just part of who we are, and it's a beautiful part of who we are. It's the part that makes you go, okay, you know, that music makes it work, so that the rhythm in this works, and, you know, understanding the finite parts of fashion can make it so that you're a better portrait painter or stuff. I mean, look at Barclay Hendrick's work. He's so based on clothing and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of tie-ins that happen, and it's a beautiful thing when you realize that you're all of those things encompassed.
Mm-hmm. And we have another question here. As someone relating to traveling away from your roots, how did your travels remind you of those roots?
Oh yeah, they did. They very much reminded me of, well, they made me realize once I got out of my little, out of here off the rock, when I came back, how special it is. I would compare it to other places. You know, I'm all over the world, and they're like, oh, yeah, home's really nice though. Cape Cod's really nice. And I'd say, yeah, it's nice. I lived in Columbus, Ohio. I lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for a little while. I lived down in Washington, D.C. They're, you know, all wonderful places, met a lot of wonderful people. But then couldn't wait to get back here on Cape Cod, run the businesses, and you know, just for its natural beauty, the sunlight, the history that you know, the Provincetown area has with the art, you know, it's the oldest art community in the United States. It's just really rich. This place is very, very rich in a lot of ways, and so the travel made me actually realize how special I have it, and it made me come back with it as a different person. Great question.
And I guess one thing I would kind of build off of this question, obviously with your traveling so much as a flight attendant and being born in France, so having that kind of French art history, which perhaps even by blood or by osmosis, just being there, being from there, is kind of coming throughout your work. You know, a lot of your work that you've shown us is figurative, right? But you do have a lot of abstract work.
I do. I work, you know, I think everything's tied into the abstraction. And in this work here, actually, I can show you how things kind of progress. If here, let me pull this out. Well, I happen to run into this one first. This is another Joe's piece. I don't know if you can see it here. And then I'll grab one of these. There you go. So that's Joe's Twin Villa, another Joe's Twin Villa piece.
With your Joe's Twin Villas pieces, do you number them or differentiate them in the titles?
I differentiate in titles. This one I'm still having. I'm going to put some print. Joe's Twin Villa sign gets printed out, and in here is we actually had a rotisserie chicken and ribs that were delicious, and so I would say barbecued chicken and ribs here. And the name of this piece is Good Bones. You see the bones whale bones are coming out of it, and you can kind of see through it. So it's kind of the ghosts of the history of past that's coming forward. So that was the idea behind it. So that's the different name becomes Good Bones, and as opposed to other pieces with other names to them. So that's how I differentiate the two of them, the group of them. So this is Micah's Pond. This is kind of how it looks in the middle of the summertime from my vantage point. And so what I do is I abstractly, these shapes that are created through nature, I tend to use those shapes and I take them and simplify them and break them down to their purest. And then I start moving things in and out of those worlds. So it has a way of lending to just about everything. But at the same time, if you are sensitive enough about putting things in the right places and having the right colors and stuff, what have you, format, that it can transcend. And that's the idea, that the paintings actually, when I start abstracting them, that they still have that feeling or the connection of what I'm working from. So it's a point of departure. So this is actually an unfinished work. This is in progress. So I usually don't show in progress work, but this is kind of a unique situation. So why not? So this one is, well, I don't think it will fit up there. So you're gonna have to go up there. So finding the shapes that Mother Nature had, and then breaking it down into its simplest forms and movements. Sometimes they start getting more aggressive, and sometimes they get less aggressive, but they still fit within that idea. And then what I'll do is I'll simplify. I'll take these shapes, or these big shapes that I find in here, and then I'll break them into a more simpler approach, which breaks them into these shapes here, and then I orchestrate within those shapes. So so everything is connected to each other, even though all the parts are in different places.
Mm-hmm. And for all of these pieces, the pond is the inspiration.
Yes, exactly.
That's amazing. And for the viewers and the future individuals watching this on YouTube, you can find more of Joe's pieces on his website, joediggsart.com.
So that's how that's all worked out. Now, I would like to, I don't know how we're doing time-wise here, but
we got plenty of time.
I'd like to kind of let you guys know what I'm doing. I've got some future projects that I think are really exciting. So I'm working with on a project. It's called Jazz Without Patriarchy, and it's with Terry Lynn Carrington, who's a incredible jazz musician, drummer, and it's going to be shown at the Carr Center in Detroit. I'm going to be one of, I think, maybe 2 or 3 males that are going to be in the show, possibly. The show is still kind of working. It's a multidisciplinary type of show where there's going to be music and there's going to be photography and painting, and a lot of things are involved in it. But the idea is the approach from what would jazz be like if women were really controlling everything, and whether and the contributions that African American women made to jazz music, that's the history that's just been glossed over. Terry Lynn has always been someone who's motivated me is because of her excellence and her ability just to push things beyond the normal to a higher level of expertise. And with giving me this opportunity to work in this project, she's once again taught me another layer of, so I'm learning about these fabulous women of jazz that I never heard of before. Mary Lou Williams and Jerry Allen, and it goes on and on and on. And so I've been learning. So I thank her a lot. So I'm going to show you a couple of those, like where I'm started with these pieces. None of them are finished. They're just kind of thought processes. And this piece here is kind of like in its beginning stages. So but this is Esperanza Spalding. That's her here. There's Terry Lynn Carrington in the middle here, and down the bottom is Valadea Snow. I don't know if you can see her down there, but so last time I talked to her, to Terry Lynn about this piece, I was like, I don't know, I might be eliminating Valley of Snow out of it. And she was kind of like, okay, we kind of went back and forth a little bit about that. And I thought it was really enjoyable just to have that kind of conversation about who was important in the genre. They all were important, but who had the hierarchy, and gives me a chance to learn more and more about these opportunities. So, so these are the kind of works that I'm doing from there.
And Esperanza Spalding is a very interesting choice to include in there. I believe she won a Grammy as a new artist some years ago, but she trained at Berklee School of Music.
Right. Well, Terry Lynn is a chairperson, I believe, at Berklee School of Music as well. Actually, she was the youngest person ever accepted to the college. Terry Lynn Carrington was. Played with Max Roach, Ella Fitzgerald. Who's who and what's what. She's just an incredible artist. So if you guys aren't familiar with her, you should be. She's actually someone I'm 62 years old. She's younger than I am. And to have those kind of roots at still a pretty young age is amazing. Since she was playing at 13 and 14 with every legend, every jazz legend you could possibly think of.
Great, yeah. And so what are you going to be doing on the project?
Well, they've commissioned me to do 5 paintings, and that's one of them. And so I'll be doing that, and hopefully she'll come in and curate out of whatever. I have like 8 pieces started now, and there'll probably be 10 by October. And she'll come in and curate what she wants out of that, and hopefully she'll find something that will fit in the middle of her. It's all her vision. It's not my vision. It's hers, and I'm just happy to be a part of it. So it's a collaborative structure as far as that's concerned. There'll be other artists. She's done things like this with Mick Lane Thomas, with Carrie Mae Weems. She's done this with big names before. I'm just happy to be a part of it. This is the truth. It's a wonderful opportunity, and I'm excited to just do the work.
Great, amazing. And I guess one last question I have is kind of, how do you see yourself in this? Or even, do you consider yourself part of this legacy of like master Black painters?
I don't even know if that's a decision for me to make. My job is just to do the best work that I can do, and present it out to the viewers, and hopefully they understand or want to or appreciate it. And if it takes me to that, whatever, wherever it does, it does. But I think my view for my future, for myself, is more the same of what I've been doing, realizing how blessed I am to be able to do what I'm doing. Try to stay true to what I'm doing, not let just money get in the way of it, and start changing because of money. It's a very hard thing to do, because once you sell one, it's so hard, to sell. And then once you sell pieces, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, everybody loves these. Well, you have to stay true to yourself and stay true to your mission. So we'll let the accolades come if they ever do. I'll be appreciative of all of them. I'll just keep on working.
Well, we have so many accolades to throw upon you. So, with our love of your work and just incredible enjoyment of the pieces that you have produced and have yet to produce, I just want to say thank you so much for spending this time with us and showing us into your studio. This is an amazing opportunity, amazing experience. Of course, it is during Black History Month, but you are more than just a Black artist. You are an artist. And this just happened to be an opportunity where, I could bug you into letting us in. But, we hope to get the opportunity to show some of your work in the hospital and use this as a way to engage our communities of color.
I truly hope that we continue this relationship. You guys have been fabulous to work with so far. I look forward to meeting you in person and getting a chance to get out and show people the full breadth of the art instead of bits and pieces. This was special. This is the first time I've ever let a group of people into my studio all at one time. And it's a very intimate space. It's very much where all the magic happens for me. And so it's kind of nice to be able to show my whole thing instead of just bits and pieces. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. And, we will do our best to ensure that, your legacy and the spirit of your work has continued on and is not harmed in any way from this opportunity, because it's been amazing. Let's see.
If you get a chance, if anybody's driving on Cape Cod and they get a chance to go down Route 6A, take a chance and take a look over on my Baldwin Barn. My friend Jackie Reeves and I were fortunate enough to get a barn. The Munsell family gave us a whole side of a barn, a carriage house in Barnstable, Massachusetts, right on the Old Kings Highway, which is the original highway of the United States. And right in this kind of very Republican world, I can say, is a James Baldwin mural that sits right in the middle of, right next to a church and right across the street from the Sturgis Library in Barnstable, Mass. So if you get a chance to drive by it, you know, it's a beautiful thing.
Is this a mural you made?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, well, now that we know that, we're going to have to try and get you to make more murals.
Yeah, I was fortunate to get that one. And then I was awarded the Bartlett Award at the community college, Cape Cod Community College, where I got a chance to do another mural, which it's about the contributions of people of color. So there's got, Cape Verdean cranberry pickers, along with our natives, Wampanoags, and then with the rainbow color of all the rainbow universe all across it. So I've got a couple of murals out there, and if you get a chance to check them out, and always Joe Diggs Art.
Mm-hmm.
Berta Walker Galleries is where you can see my work if you're in Provincetown, and then kind of if you pay a little attention, I might pop up anywhere. Constantly looking to hang pieces someplace.
And we have a couple more comments. I definitely want to share this one. Your cousin Vaughn wants to remind you that Terry won 2 Grammys herself.
Yes, she did.
And Dia says, can't wait to see your new work in collaboration with female jazz musicians. You are an inspiration in your life. And then we have one here is there a piece of your work you would think would hang well in the hospital?
Oh, yes, indeed. There's a whole lot of them actually that I believe will, because a lot of the work that I do, especially now on the love of the property, is very romantic, really. There's a lot of landscapes with a lot of sunsets and stuff that aren't normally my route, but to show just the absolute, I have stunning sunsets here almost every evening, and just started saying, all right, you gotta lean into this. So I've been painting these sunsets and stuff. So I think it will very much be a place where people will be able to go and nurture themselves a little bit.
Now, I know it is 2 o'clock now. There's just one question which you brought up, which I just can't help myself from wanting to ask.
A little rough, so if there's something, I have no problem.
Yeah. So murals, right? Mm-hmm. Now, murals have become something that's incredibly popular, especially in cities. That work comes out of Philadelphia in the, I believe, 70s or 80s, when they start this kind of revitalization of murals with urban art. And a lot of the murals that we see, a lot of Black artists are really making them names for themselves in the mural space. How do you, when you're approached for a mural, how does that sit with you as a artist who typically works on canvas? Are you happy to paint however you can and get the work out there? Do you find it derivative?
Yeah, I mean, what you guys got to see was just all the stuff I do on canvas. I mean, I work, I'm an art maker. So I do other things on the side. Just some things I don't show, even especially my sculptures. I don't really show the sculptures very much, but yeah, I mean, so this is just a larger scale painting is how I look at it. It works better when I have somebody with me, because it is such a larger scale. And so I look at it like that. I think what the problems come in with murals is that where you see things going and where the homeowner or the owner of the material, there has to be a symbioticness that comes together at some point where, I had carte blanche with the James Baldwin piece just to do your thing, which was great. I've had other situations where it didn't work out because they were nervous. You know, they were just afraid that the statement was going to be more than what they could handle. So that tends to be the biggest issue. But as far as the work itself is concerned, it's not really that big of a thing. The biggest now, the way they're doing some of these now are doing them in wraps. So they're doing these big, you know, they're basically shooting photographs of these huge, like a photograph of a painting, and then blowing it up so that it's big enough so it actually can wrap a building. So that's kind of what's going on in the Boston area a little bit, which is fabulous. And the murals that are in Boston right now are fabulous. I'm a big fan of the New York scene murals that are just incredible as well. And so I just, you know, as an artist, you have to, you take all of it. You know, I love the murals. I'll take portraits. I'll do figures. I'll do abstracts. That's what I do. I mix colors up and put them on.
Great. Thank you once again.